I guess you could say, politics after Hurricane Sandy. This all happening 7 days before the U.S. presidential election. Both candidates on Monday hitting the pause buttons on their campaigns. We're going to see how they're doing today. First, though, let's welcome back our guest, Andrew Revkin, who teaches at Pace University and is the one in charge of what you will find at .earth blog. Thank you for being with us from the Hudson Valley. Also with us is Freddie Winkler, president of the J. Walter Thompson's, the advertising agency's Paris branch. Also with us, Fred Davis of Democrats Abroad, Ellen Wassilina of Republicans Abroad. Now, we said both candidates hitting the pause button in a, I guess you could call it a timid fashion. Mitt Romney returning to the campaign trail this Tuesday. He had at one point said he wouldn't be out campaigning. Instead, he did come out. There were no firebrand speeches, however. It was instead sticking to the subject matter at hand, that is to say, this storm.
And I appreciate your generosity. It's part of the American spirit, the American way to give to people who are in need. And your generosity this morning touches my heart, and I appreciate what you've done.
All right, that was in Kettering, Ohio. Let's go to France 24's Nathan King, who's also in Ohio, in Dayton, for the France 24 Election Express, our daily look on the road at the campaign. Nathan, do you get the sense that where you are in Ohio, one of those crucial swing states, that there is a sort of a feeling that things are more subdued today after the storm?
Yeah, François, I have to say, by the way, the France 24 Election Express was at that event at Kettering, and you could say it's subdued. You heard it from Mitt Romney's remarks, but we were at that rally, and I can tell you it was a political rally. It just didn't have the firebrand speeches, as you said, and everyone who came in thought they were going to a rally. But people who were coming in were asked to bring food and hand up to Mitt Romney, who then was going to hand it on to the Red Cross. So the optics of this are really interesting. Remember, President Obama is also sending out fundraising letters now, but they're not for his campaign, they're for the Red Cross. He's looking presidential, so that is part of a campaign. He doesn't necessarily Air Force One because it's not flying around the country because of the conditions, but he has the White House, he has the briefing room, and so the politics are very much through the prism of Sandy right now. The campaigns also continue through their surrogates. Bill Clinton's out, we have others from the Romney family out as well. So the big question is when we get back to this sort of fully thronged campaign, considering the clock is running out.
Ellen Wassilina of Republicans Abroad here, Nathan, was saying in part one of our discussion that she doesn't think that we will go back to attack mode between now and Election Day. Do you agree?
Well, I think there's a large part of this country that is not affected by Sandy. Obviously there's 50 million people that there's utmost concern right now. And I think it's going to be very, very difficult at the weekend and on Monday not to try and get out the base with some of the arguments. You know, this is really turning out, especially here in Ohio, as a turnout game, a get out the vote game. These are passionate supporters who need to get to the polls. And so therefore, I think you're going to need some of those arguments to come out. But you're right, it's a difficult metrics, it's difficult optics, and it's going to be interesting. In a way, I think it's up to President Obama to go first. If he hangs back at the White House and looks presidential, it's going to be very, very difficult. Mitt Romney to go at him and some of his supporters as well. I think Governor Christie really hit the mood today when he sort of joined with President Obama and calling his handling of the crisis outstanding. It's very difficult to wheel back from that, but we'll see. You need to energize your base, especially the Republican Party who had problems with Mitt Romney early on.
And based on what you're saying, the people at that rally in Kettering, Nathan King, were they anxious?
Yeah. No, because, Ohio has not been hit as hard. They're anxious for people they may know on the eastern seaboard.
Were they anxious for the chances of their candidate?
Yeah, they want to go forward. They know that Ohio is split down the middle. Latest polls have it split down the middle. That they know they have some momentum coming out of the debates and the latest Gallup polls and the like, and they want to go door to door. They are passionate about some of the issues, especially when it comes to energy future. There's a lot of coal people coming. There were a lot of people who are disappointed about the economic recovery in Ohio, though it has been better than most of the nation, and a lot of them wanted to go door to door and ramp up the campaign as well. So you may not see it on your TV screens. I think the backdrops, of the presidential candidates waving and giving barnstorming speeches may be obviously more subdued. But when it comes to the grassroots, you're going to see a lot of people out and a lot of passionate arguments, I think.
All right, one final question for you, Nathan King. What's your schedule going to be now over the next couple of days?
Well, this is a fascinating time. Just to recap, we have obviously come south from New York and Washington, D.C. We had Virginia, North Carolina. We went through Kentucky. We've come up through the south of Ohio, the key Hamilton County. I really want to talk about that just for 1 second. We were just there this morning in Cincinnati. That county went Democrat with President Obama. It had been Republican for a long time. Watch that county on election night, because if it starts turning Republican, it could turn Ohio to the Republicans and the nation. I think that's the key swing county in the nation. We are moving north now through Ohio. We're going to be in Columbus. We're going to be talking about whether the economic recovery, especially in the car industry, has actually taken hold. There are a lot of people laid off despite the car industry's resurgence. And we're also going to be talking to women voters. The key swing demographic here is women in Ohio, not many Latinos. And there is a new phrase out this 2012 campaign. It wasn't the NASCAR dads of 2004, 2008. It's the Walmart mum, the mum who pays the bills in the last 4 years and is looking to feed her family and make sure they make ends meet. So we'll be talking to some of those as well. It's going to be fascinating. And by the way, we're going to be in Chicago on election night, and we're going to dump the RV and be with you for that. So it's very exciting.
We will indeed, through the night Paris time and through the evening of Central time. I want to thank you, Nathan King, and we'll be keeping tabs thanks to the France 24 Election Express. Freddie Winkler, interesting to hear the predictions here. We've heard two of them so far as to which way the tone of the campaign is now going to go in the final days. What are your predictions?
I would almost say the campaign's officially over, although that's maybe a bit crazy to say, but I think it's officially over, because if I was in Obama's shoes, I would try and keep it as much as, I'm the commander-in-chief now, rally people around me. It will depend a lot on what images will come out of the media. If there's people hurt, if there's a lot of damage, everything we see right now is peopleless. You see no one, just streets, floods, no one. When you start to see images of people coming out, of people getting hurt, of people needing attention, that will start to bring back the subject to some of the election debates. Obamacare, what do you do with that when you have a lot of people in need who would not normally get help? So I would, if I was him, try and keep it as much presidential as I can. And Romney's going to have a difficulty going back attacking him if it's doing well. So I think what we just said, which is very interesting, is the campaign's now going underground. It's going to be less in the media. It's going to be much more underground, the door-to-door, what people are doing, in these states that haven't been hurt. And what you start to see, which is interesting also, is the language that's being used. Romney's rally is not a rally, it's a relief event. So, which actually what he's been doing is really good. Saying relief events, saying, and we'll send my buses, without having the Romney signs on it. It's a very smart way also of handling it as much as he can, because if he's putting all these logos everywhere, obviously that would be seen as bad. So doing everything we can to help. But it's what he said, which is, this is very American to give to people in need, is a very different thing from what we heard him say about the 47%. Very different to what we've heard Ryan say about Obamacare. So he has a slight issue in what he's going to be doing for the next 7 days, which are going to be key, because this election is really on the fringes. The people at the end will choose might be 100,000 or 200,000.
Who will swing the balance either way.
Yeah.
So we heard from Mitt Romney a little earlier at a relief event. Barack Obama, speaking with a different backdrop, he was at the White House on Monday.
The election will take care of itself next week. Right now, our number one priority is to make sure that we are saving lives, that our search and rescue teams are going to be in place.
Ellen Wassilina, is it hard to campaign against something like that? He looks the part, huh?
Well, he's the commander-in-chief, and he reminded us in the third and last debate and he should be there. And we're not, going to criticize him now, but what Romney has done, and I think you made a very good point, it's now the time to show the real person you are and how generous and how human you are, because everybody says Romney has no heart. He's all, capitalistic money and everything. But now you probably are going to see another side. And if there was money to put into the campaign now, like they were talking about, even Donald Trump was talking about some money, et cetera, now is the time to put that money up front and show who is the more generous or more human of these candidates that really has some qualities that people are looking for in this campaign.
Frederick Davis, sorry. Let me ask you, we've seen both sides of the argument now as to what's going to happen on the campaign trail. Nathan King saying that it's going to be hard in a lot of those states for the people who are getting out the vote to bite their lower lip and keep it cool.
Well, I guess I'm a bit more cynical. I think we're going to see before next Tuesday a fair amount of old-fashioned campaigning on the issues. We've already seen Mr. Romney making a decision, which I find incomprehensible, to go after President Obama on saving General Motors and keeping hundreds of thousands of people from going on the jobless and reestablishing General Motors as the #1 car maker in the country. And to me, that's just too good a target. I suspect we'll be hearing from him toward the end of this week about why that was important for him to do. And even in the context of the storm, which is a horrific personal event, I think it's not lost on people that FEMA, the federal agency that is out there, helping people, is something that the Democratic Party is very much in favor of supporting. So I tend to think we're going to be seeing politics with a different tone. I think we're going to be seeing a little bit softer voices, but it's going to be right out there.
I think the storm softened the tone, don't you think?
Pardon?
I think the storm softened the tone.
No, I think
it's like a break, maybe, that was needed.
Andrew Refkin, will we see more shenanigans, more attack ads being unveiled, things to energize the base? Because it's also about not just getting that very small sliver of votes that Freddie Winkler was mentioning, but really getting each side to come out and vote.
Well, certainly on that front, one of your other correspondents mentioned FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, and Romney is kind of hobbled because during one of the primary campaign debates, he talked about basically ending FEMA, turning back to the states, and ideally the private sector, the emergency response, which realistically, especially in large-scale emergencies like this, there has to be a role from the federal government. And that piece of video has been making the rounds. Whether or not it's on a TV ad, it's certainly been making the rounds via blogs and Twitter.
And you're saying it's making the rounds on blogs and Twitter. Will that be enough, though, to sway, to change votes at this late stage?
Again, not really. The directly impacted states here, New York certainly is already hard in Obama's camp. So the one issue that I think is interesting to watch in the next few days, and this is the rest of this week, is that the major media, we're all here in New York, and are just surrounded by this issue, the epic nature, having New York City, a big chunk of a major city, in the dark, and probably for days to come, according to Con Ed, is going to be an issue that will somehow reverberate through how the networks are covering the politics going forward. So I don't think it's unrealistic to see it still shaping things right through into the coming weekend, especially because, as someone said, then you're going to start to see some really angry people. If you're in a 20-story building with no power and you have to go up and down every day, that's all that's going to add up to something.
All that's going to add up to something, but Freddie Winkler, just like the rest of France, thinks that the Parisians do too much navel-gazing. Well, the rest of the United States gets sick of hearing about New York City after a while. Since, after all, it is a huge election coming up next Tuesday.
Well, remember, if Wall Street is shut and remains shut for 4 days, it will still be in the news. And I think naturally, and again, you'll see very different types of images. You'll have that, then you'll have people getting hurt. You'll have, the more of the damage we're seeing right now, and then you'll have the economy coming back towards the end. So, a lot of that means the entire country will get hurt. And again, you can't, once it starts to get personal, when it starts to be about people getting hurt, you're not going to go, oh, come on, don't show us these pictures. There's a natural fit after a big crisis like this to have 4 or 5 days of media coverage on it.
President Obama, we're just getting word. He's been visiting, as we speak, a Red Cross office, and he's saying the storm is not yet over. Is he really just going to be able to speak about this all the way to next Tuesday?
No, but you can make out of this a lot of stories about how you need to help people, how you need a state organization to feed wherever it is in the country, and how you can't rely on just private help. So there'll be a lot of very powerful images that you can use to demonstrate that case, and demonstrate how you need to help, how the state needs to help people in need, especially at these moments there. And there'll be words from both sides saying that. So I think there's potentially very smart things that he could do in terms of even getting Romney rallying to some of the things he'll say.
Andrew Revkin, seen from over here in France, it looks like the U.S. election really has been, from the beginning, a referendum on the size of government. Will this be, listening to what Freddie Winkler just said, all the more so in the next few days after this storm?
Well, as you heard earlier in the broadcast, those meta issues really don't matter anymore, because it is coming down to a couple of states and a couple of small chunks of voters to tip the balance one way or the other. And that's why things like the recent fuss over Romney's approach to the auto issue in Ohio, those are the kinds of things to look. It gets really fine-grained at the very end. And I think, unfortunately, that's why these points, I think, matter, but I don't think they're going to swing the election one way or the other at this point.
And once again, it's very close. The New York Times 538 blog crunching the numbers of the Electoral College. We can flash them up for you, and there you'll see a very slight bump in favor of Obama. But all this, of course, within the margin of error. Politico's map of swing states, same story. It gives, again, Obama the edge, but so many of those states are within that margin of error. It's a question, once again, and Freddie Winkler, I'm going to put this to you. Can the polls just get it completely wrong? Can we see on Election Day, I don't know, Obama winning Florida, Romney winning Ohio?
It's difficult. It could get completely wrong, like we had in France, when you had suddenly someone who's extreme and people don't want to admit to vote for him or her. That's not the case here. So the case here is really, it is looking very tight. It's not the first time it's been tight. And when it's as tight as that, it's very difficult for polls to actually be able to make the difference. So probably look into the crystal ball is quite a good guess, or have a guess on pick the states like this. Unless this thing does swing that little extra percent, and that's where I think the fringe is still a percent of people that can make a difference in these states.
Every issue matters, and every vote counts. Freddie Winkler, I know you'll be with us for election night, and
Yes.
we're looking forward to it. I want to thank Ellen Wassilina for being with us.
Thank
I want
you.
to thank Frederick Davis, and for joining us from the Hudson Valley, Andrew Revkin. I hope that your power is restored very soon. Thank you for being with us here in the France 24 debate.